Lola Young has become one of the most talked about rising stars in music. Her raw voice, unfiltered honesty, and striking vulnerability pulled in fans almost overnight. But with fame arriving faster than anyone could have predicted, questions are starting to swirl about whether she can handle the weight that comes with it. Her collapse on stage in New York sent shockwaves across social media, with fans torn between concern and cruel accusations. Some see her as another young artist pushed past her limits, while others question whether the story is even real. But when you look closer at her career, her health, and the team guiding her, the warning signs become impossible to ignore. Because Lola's story isn't just about one bad night on stage, it's about an industry that has repeated this pattern before. And the haunting question is whether history is about to repeat itself again. To understand why fans are so alarmed, you first have to look at how quickly Lola rose to fame and how that meteoric rise has already taken its toll. Lola Young's journey into stardom wasn't gradual, it was explosive. In just a few short years, she went from a teenager uploading raw songs written in her bedroom to one of the most promising names in modern music. What set her apart was the vulnerability woven into her lyrics. Her tracks felt less like pop anthems and more like diary entries, where she wasn't afraid to sing about depression, self-doubt, and survival. In an industry obsessed with perfection and polish, Lola stood out because she was real. That honesty made her a fan favorite almost overnight, and it wasn't long before critics were calling her the voice of her generation. Her breakthrough single caught fire across streaming platforms, propelling her onto major playlists and introducing her to a global audience. Almost immediately, she was booking high-profile festivals and catching the attention of industry veterans who saw her as the next big thing. Magazines praised her fearless vulnerability, and her sound, a mix of gritty soul and modern pop, earned her comparisons to Adele and Amy Winehouse. But unlike many of her peers, Lola refused to hide behind carefully crafted PR. She admitted her struggles openly, and in a world where so many stars are untouchable, her willingness to say what others were too scared to made fans feel like they truly knew her. But that meteoric rise came with a price. Behind the awards, TV performances, and sold-out shows was a teenager barely out of school, suddenly thrown into the harshest spotlight possible. Every performance had to be flawless, every interview dissected, and every personal detail magnified. Fame that arrives too quickly often leaves little room for growth or stability, and for Lola, the pressure of being labeled the next great voice became overwhelming. While the world saw her rapid climb as a dream come true, insiders were already whispering about whether she had the support system to survive it. The warning signs came early. As Lola's fame skyrocketed, so did the demands on her time and energy. Recording sessions, world tours, press interviews, and endless promotion left her with little space to breathe. And while fans celebrated each new milestone, from her appearance on late-night shows to her powerful ballads dominating streaming charts, the cracks beneath the surface began to show. For a young woman who poured her heart into every lyric, the very thing that made Lola Young so special was also what made her so fragile. The first major alarm came not from her music, but from a frightening moment on stage that made the world stop and watch. It was supposed to be another triumphant night for Lola Young, a major music festival performance in New York City where thousands of fans had gathered to see her live. But midway through her set, everything changed. Viewers noticed her expression shift, her movements become unsteady, and in a matter of seconds, she was signaling to her team that something was wrong. Moments later, Lola collapsed on stage, shocking the audience and leaving fans in disbelief. The incident was captured from multiple angles and immediately went viral, sparking headlines and intense online debate about what had really happened to one of music's fastest rising stars. As Lola was escorted off stage, conscious but clearly struggling, the crowd looked on in stunned silence. Social media exploded within minutes. Some fans expressed heartbreak and deep concern for her health, while others took a far more cynical view. A surprising number of commenters accused her of faking the collapse, claiming it was a stunt to cover up poor vocals or technical difficulties. But those who watched closely disagreed. Her face, her body language, the way she signaled before going down, it all pointed to genuine distress. The comparisons to other public fainting moments, like Wendy Williams' live on-air collapse, only fueled the discussion. For those who had been following Lola's career closely, This was not an isolated scare, but part of a troubling pattern. She had already shown signs of exhaustion during other live shows, including a performance at Coachella where she vomited on stage due to heat and nerves. Industry insiders noted the grueling schedule she was under, with barely any breaks between tours, interviews, and studio sessions. The New York collapse wasn't just a single shocking moment, it was a red flag that suggested Lola Young was being pushed past her physical and emotional limits. And while fans hoped it was a one-time incident, the truth was that this was only the beginning of an even bigger concern. And soon after, the cancellations and explanations from her team only deepened the concerns. In the days following her shocking collapse in New York, fans hoped Lola Young would rest and return stronger. Instead, what came next only fueled more concern. Show after show began to vanish from her tour schedule, with her team citing sensitive matters as the reason. The cancellations weren't just one-offs, they were part of a growing pattern, and fans quickly noticed. To make matters more unsettling, Lola's own social media accounts were suddenly being used by her manager, Nick Shymansky, to deliver statements directly to the public. He assured audiences that Lola was being protected and prioritized, but for many fans, his involvement raised immediate red flags. The name Nick Shymansky carries heavy history in the music industry. He was once the manager of Amy Winehouse, and his close relationship with her is deeply woven into her legacy. In fact, Nick was the one who urged Amy to seek help when her life began spiraling, and his efforts directly inspired her iconic and heartbreaking hit, Rehab. Despite his persistence, Amy's battles with addiction and mental health ended in tragedy, cementing her as one of music's greatest losses. Seeing his name attached to Lola now brought back painful memories for fans who lived through Amy's story. The parallels were impossible to ignore. A young, talented British singer with raw honesty, managed by the same man who witnessed one of the darkest downfalls in music history. That connection left many fans torn. On one hand, Nick had experience with the pressures of fame and a proven track record of trying to protect his artists. On the other, his involvement stirred fears that history could be repeating itself. If Amy, with all her talent and support, couldn't survive under the weight of the industry, what hope was there for Lola, who was already showing signs of exhaustion, vulnerability, and mental strain? Was Nick truly the safeguard she needed, or was this the beginning of another devastating cautionary tale? The cancellations might have been the first red flag, but Lola herself revealed even more about her struggles in a recent interview that left fans deeply unsettled. Just weeks before her frightening onstage collapse, Lola Young sat down for a CBS interview that quickly became a talking point among fans. On the surface, she said all the right things, even telling the host she was the happiest she had ever been. But viewers saw something else. The hesitation in her voice, the tension in her body language, and the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. It was the kind of interview that left audiences conflicted. The words suggested stability, but the emotions painted a different picture. Many longtime supporters admitted afterward that it was difficult to watch because it felt like Lola was masking something much heavier beneath the surface. Her openness about her diagnosis added to the concern. At just 17 years old, Lola revealed she had been diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, a serious condition that combines symptoms of schizophrenia, such as hallucinations or delusions, with symptoms of mood disorders like deep depression or bipolar episodes. For someone so young, the weight of such a diagnosis was enormous. Yet rather than hide it, Lola leaned into transparency, telling fans that music was her lifeline. Writing and performing became a form of therapy, an escape from the turbulence of her mind and the instability of her early years. "I had a burning desire to escape," she admitted in the interview, describing a childhood marked by challenges and emotional hardship. While music gave her freedom, it did not erase the scars. She acknowledged that unresolved pain from her past still follows her today, shaping both her art and her mental health. That honesty struck a chord with fans who admired her bravery, but it also raised alarms. Because as much as her music allows her to share her truth, it also exposes how fragile she still feels. And when combined with the unforgiving pace of the music industry, it left many fearing that Lola's transparency was less a strength and more a cry for help. If her interview revealed the internal battle she faces, her live performances showed just how much that battle was spilling out in public. Lola Young's collapse in New York wasn't an isolated moment. It was part of a disturbing pattern of on-stage struggles that had been building for months. One of the most widely discussed incidents came during her highly anticipated Coachella debut. Under the punishing California desert heat, Lola pushed herself to keep performing, but her body couldn't handle it. Midway through her set, she suddenly vomited on stage, leaving fans stunned and deeply concerned. The moment went viral across social media, with clips spreading rapidly on TikTok and Twitter, sparking debates about whether she was being overworked and pushed far beyond her physical limits. And it wasn't just Coachella. At other concerts, technical failures and sound issues left her visibly frustrated, sometimes to the point of tears. Fans could see her struggle in real time, as the pressure of perfection clashed with the messy realities of live performance. For an artist already battling mental health challenges, these repeated disruptions were more than minor setbacks. They became breaking points that exposed just how fragile her situation really was. Her emotional reactions weren't the dramatics of a diva, they were the raw responses of someone who was running on empty. Even fellow performers recognized the severity of what was happening. Doja Cat, one of the biggest names in music today, took a moment during her own performance to rally the audience in support of Lola after seeing her struggle. She urged the crowd to cheer and send love, acknowledging that Lola was clearly battling something much bigger than stage nerves. When artists at Lola's level start drawing concern and compassion from their peers, it's a sign that the pressure has gone too far. At that point, it became impossible to ignore. Lola wasn't just struggling behind closed doors. She was unraveling in front of thousands, with the entire world watching. And as always happens in the digital age, the internet had its own harsh reaction. The collapse that should have sparked compassion instead ignited a firestorm online. Within hours, Lola Young's name was trending across social media, but the conversation quickly took a darker turn. Instead of offering empathy, critics flooded timelines with cruel accusations. Some claimed she was too weak for the pressures of touring, while others went further, suggesting she faked the entire incident to cover up vocal issues or boost publicity. For an artist already battling exhaustion and mental health struggles, the backlash wasn't just hurtful, it was devastating. What could have been a moment of collective concern turned into yet another reminder of how ruthless internet culture can be. Lola, clearly overwhelmed by the negativity, decided to respond directly. In an emotional Instagram post, she pleaded with her critics, writing, "To all the people who love to be mean online, please give me a day off." The statement struck a nerve with her fans, who rallied around her, flooding her comments with love and words of encouragement. But the plea also revealed something more troubling, just how much the relentless online harassment was weighing on her. For someone already under immense pressure, the constant scrutiny made it nearly impossible to heal or find peace. The divide online was impossible to ignore. For every fan defending Lola and urging others to show compassion, there seemed to be another voice mocking her, questioning her authenticity, or dismissing her struggles altogether. This toxic split reflected a larger issue in the music industry, the brutal double standard where young female artists are often expected to be flawless, and when they falter, they're ridiculed instead of supported. Lola's situation became a painful example of how online criticism doesn't just bruise egos, it can crush someone already fighting to hold themselves together. But behind the noise, the spotlight turned again to her manager. A man whose history in the industry raises as many concerns as it does reassurances. When Lola Young's manager, Nick Shymansky, began releasing statements on her behalf, longtime music fans immediately felt a sense of déjà vu. Shymansky isn't just another industry executive. He is the same man who managed Amy Winehouse from the age of 16, guiding her during the early stages of her career and witnessing her most troubling years firsthand. In past interviews, Nick described late-night phone calls from Amy, often incoherent and desperate for help. He recalled rushing through Camden at 2 a.m., searching for her after receiving cryptic messages, knowing something was very wrong but feeling powerless to stop the spiral. Shymansky has always maintained that he tried to intervene. He urged Amy to enter rehab, a plea that famously inspired her hit song, Rehab. But his efforts were undermined, he says, by resistance from her family and Amy's own denial of how serious her situation had become. Despite his attempts to act as a safeguard, Amy's decline became one of music's most painful tragedies, leaving fans to wonder whether her management could have, or should have, done more. Now, with Szymanski at Lola's side, those same questions have resurfaced. His insistence that he and his team occasionally take protective measures to keep her safe may sound reassuring on paper, but to fans who remember Amy's story, the words feel more like a chilling echo of the past. The parallels are difficult to ignore. Once again, a young, once-in-a-generation British talent is being guided by the same figure who watched another artist's downfall unfold. While some argue that Szymanski's painful history with Amy might make him more protective of Lola, others fear it's a sign that history could be on the verge of repeating itself. Is Nick truly the safety net Lola needs in an industry known for exploiting its brightest stars? Or is this another example of a cycle that never seems to end? The uncertainty leaves fans uneasy, because when management is caught between protecting an artist and pushing them to perform, the consequences can be devastating. While her management remains under scrutiny, Lola herself continues to struggle, with recent updates showing she's still far from stable. Right now, Lola Young's career feels like it's hanging in the balance. Once celebrated as one of Britain's most exciting new voices, she is now known just as much for her string of cancellations as for her music. In recent weeks, she has pulled out of multiple shows, often just hours before going on stage, leaving fans worried and disappointed. Each time, Lola has shared heartfelt apologies on social media, admitting that she simply isn't well enough to perform. In her own words, there are days she feels like she can't go on, but despite those feelings, she continues to push herself when she can, a sign of both her commitment to her craft and the intense pressure weighing on her shoulders. The growing concern around her well-being has sparked online campaigns with hashtags like #Protect Lola, where fans demand that her label and management step back and allow her to rest. Messages of support flood her pages daily, with fans urging her to put her health before the industry's demands. But history tells a darker story. The music business has often ignored warning signs until it was too late. From Amy Winehouse to Avicii, the list of artists who were pushed to the edge in pursuit of success is tragically long. Supportive fans may be loud, but behind the scenes, there is always pressure for the next show, the next festival, the next profit. That's the impossible crossroads Lola faces today. On one side, the path of recovery, a chance to step back, heal, and reclaim her happiness before it slips away. On the other, an unforgiving industry machine that rarely shows mercy, especially to young women who are still finding their footing in fame. Whether she chooses to fight for her health or to keep pushing through for her career will determine not just the future of her music, but potentially her life. And for her fans, every canceled show, every vulnerable post, and every emotional performance feels like a reminder that time may be running out for the industry to make the right choice. And that brings us to the bigger question that this story forces us to confront. Lola Young's story isn't just about one artist. It's a reflection of the music industry itself. Time and time again, we've seen the same dangerous cycle play out. A young, gifted performer skyrockets to fame, only to find themselves crushed under the weight of unrealistic expectations and an unforgiving schedule. Lola's collapse on stage, her candid admissions about mental health, and her visible exhaustion are not isolated incidents. They echo the stories of Amy Winehouse, Avicii, Whitney Houston, and countless others whose brilliance was dimmed too soon. Fans are right to be worried, because history has shown us exactly how devastating this cycle can be when warning signs are ignored. What makes Lola's case especially heartbreaking is her honesty. Unlike many artists who hide their struggles, she has openly spoken about her diagnosis, her painful past, and her battles with exhaustion. That transparency has created a deep bond with her fans, but it has also revealed just how fragile she is in an industry that rarely prioritizes healing. The very traits that make Lola's music powerful, her vulnerability and authenticity, are the same ones that put her most at risk. For every supporter rallying behind Charge Protect Lola, there are powerful forces within the business that see her not as a human being, but as a brand to monetize, regardless of the cost. So the pressing question remains, Will Lola be given the space to step back, recover, and reclaim her life before it's too late? Or are we watching the early chapters of another cautionary tale unfold in real time? Fame can be a gift, opening doors and changing lives, but it can also become a trap that consumes the very people it celebrates. Lola's next chapter will not only determine her future, but it will also serve as a test for the industry. Will it finally learn from its past mistakes, or will it once again sacrifice a young star to the endless cycle of profit over people? Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next upload. And don't forget to drop a like and share your thoughts in the comments. It helps the channel grow and lets me know what stories you want covered next.